Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of the Battlestar Galactica franchise documentary. I'm delighted this evening to be joined by the one and only Colin Corrigan, who played the role of Marine Allan Nowart in Battlestar Galactica. I suppose, Colin, Battlestar Galactica, I suppose in this crazy world we live in, it's probably seems a long time ago now since you were shooting in Vancouver, taking part in multiple episodes of Battlestar Galactica. In some ways, does it almost feel more than a decade ago? Does it feel like a lifetime ago for you?
It does. It's hard. I mean, sometimes it's amazing how the individual days can drag on, but the years fly by so quickly. And to look back and realize exactly that it's been over 10 years, it's just like, how is that even possible? That it feels like it was just yesterday in some ways, but yeah, it was a great time in my life, most definitely. So I'll never forget it.
And I suppose, Colin, one thing that struck me in terms of doing this documentary so far is the amount of actors who've tried out for different roles on the show, and in terms of different roles, they were probably unsuccessful in certain roles and then wound up getting other roles by chance or opportunity, and other roles, other actors going for particular roles, not getting them. Maybe something caught the producer's eye, went for a different role, and obviously that came about. In terms of your own story, Colin, was it always the one role you went for, the Marine Allan Nowart? Had you tried out for previous roles? Had you gone for one of the main lead roles? Or can you tell us about how you got the role of Marine Allan Nowart?
Well, it certainly wasn't the most conventional way. Actually, one of my closest friends is Aaron Douglas, who played Chief Tyrrell. And I can still remember, when Aaron used to audition, I would sometimes help him, when he had an audition the next day, we would work on it, the night before. And I can even remember auditioning and helping him work when he read for the role of Apollo for the Battlestar pilot. So, even going back that far, and then Aaron got on the show. And I had also done some background work as a Marine, in I guess maybe the first and second season a little bit, but it was actually through Aaron's encouragement and connections, just by playing poker with Michael Reimer, who directed the episode that I eventually was first cast in, or going for a drink, on a Friday night with David Icke, one of the executive producers. So Aaron did a lot to make me, familiarize me with all of the, the power people on the show. And so when the opportunity did come up for, I think it was The Woman King was the first episode I was in, I, got an audition, read, like everyone else, for Michael Reimer, but I'd already had a bit of a relationship with Michael. And so it was, again, just kind of unconventional in that sense, but I'm sure that it helped, as long as I did a good job, to land the part, which, obviously I did. So
I suppose, Colin, you mentioned there probably Aaron opened up a sort of opportunities for you, and I suppose Aaron was probably in the show at that time. Did you see it as another working gig, or did you see it as a real potential massive sort of a project at the time? Had you seen maybe the reaction to the first sort of season of Battlestar Galactica, and you said to yourself, wow, if I can get on this sort of gravy train, it could really propel me up sort of the ranks? Or did you see it at the time as just another working opportunity, or was this a project you deeply wanted to get involved in?
Well, having watched, the first and the second season of the show, it was amazing. One of the, still to this day, locally in Vancouver, arguably one of the best shows ever produced in Vancouver. A lot of people feel very strongly about that. It was the writing was so amazing. The social commentary on the events in the world, we do a lot of sci-fi stuff in Vancouver, but Battlestar was certainly, I think, in a, on its own as far as the quality. And so it was exciting to have any opportunity to work on the show. And, and as a day player kind of part, you didn't know if it was going to be for one episode or if it was going to continue. And, so when I first got the gig, I was just happy to be in that one episode, and, had no idea what the future was going to have in store for my character. But, luckily, they kept me around, and then one episode led to, I think in the end I did 12. So was very exciting. I was very fortunate. Yes.
And I suppose, Colin, one thing that struck me speaking to a number of the cast was how big the set was. It was like an airplane sort of hangar with sort of multiple characters. And I remember talking to Michael Trucco, and he told me the first day he was on set, he got lost. Paul Campbell told me he went around and he ventured down a corridor he wasn't supposed to go into and got told off by Trish Helfer. In terms of yourself, how was it like in terms of being on the set of Battlestar Galactica, in terms of finding your way around?
Well, it's certainly, those stages are big, and, they had a lot of corridor sets, that just kind of snaked around. So if it was like, your first time in there, it definitely takes a few days to kind of get your bearings on where things are. But as a fan, and even as a young boy, I watched the original series, so just to be, on the set of a reimagining though of that series, and just to see the detail and the intricacy, like the art department had done with building those sets, it was incredible. So, it was certainly a grand scale of things to see, but it was also, just really helped to ground you into what was going on, because you could really believe that you were actually where the story was taking place on the ship. It was amazing. Yeah.
And I suppose one thing, in terms of the cast, it was a young sort of cast trying to make their way in terms of breakout, and then you had probably the three main stars in terms of Paul Hogan, Eddie Olmos, and Mary McDonnell. And I suppose Eddie Olmos was probably an iconic figure. Everybody knew him from Blade Runner and that sort of show in terms of its cult sort of status. So working for you as an actor, trying to progress in terms of being working on a project, the same project, or getting to face with Eddie Olmos. As an actor, I suppose, who takes a real craft in their work, to see such an actor with such a resume under his belt, it must be a great thing to be standing toe to toe beside him.
It was, and he's, just watching him, you can learn so much. His presence, his choices, and in one of the, I believe it was the Oath episode, me and my Marine partner had, I think we'd shot some people in the bridge sort of thing, and then we were taking Michael Hogan and Edward James Olmos to the brig, and then that was where I actually had to, a little bit of a scene with Eddie, and it was just surreal, to be standing there, like you say, with this guy with this resume of things that I've been watching him my entire life, and now I'm standing there, and he's challenging me to a fight. So here I am, and he actually does end up, kind of assaulting me, shooting my partner, and then they take me hostage. But it was a wild, wild sequence of events, and it was so much fun. And he was, again, so generous, with what he was giving me back. And it was just, probably will be one of the highlights of my career when all is said and done, definitely.
I suppose, Colin, hostage situations was the key for you. I suppose it was a tone in sort of your appearances in Battlestar Galactica, and another real one with Starbuck, Katie Sackhoff returning from the dead and taking Laura Roslin hostage, or getting on the Leah Dalfa's Alpha sort of team as well. It was all sort of real sort of renegade, sort of mutiny, sort of faction sort of stories, where it was always on the go in terms of real sort of Marine sort of stuff, as you said.
Oh, definitely. And even with the story that we, with on the Oath, even though we were having a mutiny led by Gaeta, the way that I approached it anyways was I was still loyal to Adama. So the last thing, I was never intending to ever hurt him, which I think my partner, Craig Veroni is the actor that played him, might have been a little bit more aggressive in the, taking care of business or doing what needed to be done, but I was still very loyal to Adama. So that was, even though we were taking them hostage in that sort of situation, he was still a very revered person and the leader. And we just thought he was just wrong with what their policy was on the Cylons and what they were doing. And so that was why Gaeta's plan made sense to us, and we were going to do it, but I was by no means going to hurt, our commander, in the process, I would do what would have to be done. So that made it a little bit more of a, I certainly had a lot more sympathy for my hostage per se than, just like a gun for hire, taking somebody and holding them, for, whatever my boss or whoever was wanting me to do it for in the first place. But, I guess, throughout the series, there were certainly many instances of that sort of thing. So yeah, it was interesting in that way. Yeah.
I suppose that Colin, in terms of being involved in sort of sci-fi series that turn into sort of cult classics, I know there are a great sort of sci-fi series made in Canada, Stargate, massive fan, global base all over the world as well. And in terms of Battlestar Galactica, that's very sort of true in sense of conventions, opportunities coming about and sort of the future. And do you witness that after appearing sort of Battlestar Galactica? You were very much in demand still, maybe a year or two after the series for conventions, for stuff like that, in terms of Battlestar Galactica sort of stuff, even after the series is finished?
You know what? No, nothing. The only convention I've ever been to was with Aaron. We went to Atlanta, and I believe it was in 2008 to Dragon Con. And so that's the only convention I've ever been to. And it was just an incredible experience. But I wasn't there as an invited guest. I was just there, with my friend, who was, an invited guest. So, I mean, yeah, you might have thought possibly that there might have been, but, some interest. But I guess, yeah. I mean, you watch the show. I know people that have watched the whole series, and they have no idea that I'm even in it, because the Marines wear helmets, the look of the show is so dark, so not always are people even clearly shot. But it certainly wouldn't be something that I would be, against. And I also have had, a few episodes on Stargate Atlantis, Stargate SG-1. So I've had some, credits on the Stargate universe as well. So it would be certainly hear a lot of great things about these conventions. And the one that I did go to was absolutely amazing. So maybe one of these days I'll get a phone call for something or a message.
And I suppose, Colin, being involved in sort of Battlestar Galactica, it's a series that is shown all over the world, from Germany, France, UK, Ireland, England, then it's subtitled into all the different sort of languages all over the world as well. Do you sort of notice whenever you I turn on a TV or ever you go out abroad or foreign, or someone might say, were you in Battlestar Galactica, or your name sort of rings a bell or sort of stuff like that? Or, being a part of iconic sort of franchises like the James Bond series, when you play a role, you're always part of the furniture.
I wish that was the case, but like I said, a lot of people watch the show, they don't even know that I'm in it. So I know that I'm in it, my friends know that I'm in it, etc. And but no, and that might be just the success of the show, that the story and the main characters really drove the whole franchise and the ship. But so I was just, I guess more just happy to have been a part of it. But yeah, I can't say I get recognized for a lot of other things, other television and movie appearances, but I don't even think I've ever one time been recognized from Battlestar. No, and it's my biggest bunch of credits, so it's kind of ironic in that way. Yes.
And I suppose you mentioned that about, an actor in terms of what's on your CV and on your resume. And I suppose an iconic sort of franchise like Battlestar Galactica, which received numerous sort of awards as well. In terms of going for future projects down the line, when you send in your talent agent or recommend you for a role or send in your CV, to see Battlestar Galactica on your sort of CV, to see what your appearance in it as terms of your show reel, in terms of that, it probably opens up the doors for more invites or more opportunities in terms of big films or roles or actors that you probably mightn't have gotten invited to, even if you hadn't been in Battlestar Galactica. Is that a fair point?
Most definitely. It is such a, like you said, it won awards, but critics' choice, and fans' choice. Sometimes it's one or the other. Some shows are popular with the fans and the critics hate them. Battlestar was both, and their fan base is so diehard. Like the people, even still, like you see on the internet with Facebook groups about Battlestar, or just even people in my own community here that were fans of the show, they were in. It was certainly a show that I guess really brought out the passions in people, and and the fans that were into it were completely into it. So that was really special, and that might never happen again, just for me personally, so it's just one of those things you don't always know when it's happening, but then after the fact, it was just like, wow, that was something. And that here I am 10 plus years later doing an interview for this show. So I mean, that just shows you how special it was and how well it resonated, with the community. It was amazing.
And I suppose that, Colin, the last question before I let you go, and probably the hardest question I'm going to ask you now in this interview. In terms of your own character, Marine Allan Nowart, if someone put him in as sort of a Battlestar Galactica sort of encyclopedia sort of franchise, and put Marine Allan Nowart, wrote it in bold sort of writing, and left two blank sentences underneath in terms of the description, and they asked you, Colin Corrigan, to write those two sentences to sum up Marine Allan Nowart having portrayed him, what would you like those two sentences to read?
Well, that Al Nowart was a patriot to the Galactica and the community, without question, but he would do what had to be done, at least in his point of view, if that was required, even though that went against the general norms of what was going on. But a Marine first and foremost, and very part of the military establishment on the ship, but also very loyal, to the cause and to Adama and all of the, the infrastructure that he had set up. But, that's an interesting question, but yeah, I guess willing to go outside into the gray areas if necessary to get things done.
Colin, on that note, a pleasure talking to you this evening to relive your days as Marine Allan Nowart in Battlestar Galactica. No doubt an iconic series, no doubt a big cherry moment in terms of your career as well. And Colin, hopefully more opportunities for you arising in 2021. And no doubt we look to see you on our TV screens and our movie screens in the near future. But for the moment, Colin Corrigan, take care and stay safe.
Thank you so very much for having me. All right. You have yourself a great afternoon. Okay. Thank you.